You've tuned in to Stranger Than Fiction News, broadcasting live from the dark side of the planet. We've got some bombshell news to cover with this outbreak that has just turned into a pandemic, ladies and gentlemen. And we're getting a burst effect of new cases everywhere. We're going to be covering the latest information as well as what you can do once you get infected. It'll keep getting worse and worse every single day. We've got some of the latest disturbing footage of the roundup as well as the robots. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be getting into that if we can. How's everybody doing out there in the audience? We're broadcasting live, ladies and gentlemen, hacking the matrix on the ScrewTube. If you're checking us out on Facebook, on replay on demand, be sure to find our ScrewTube if you want to participate in the live chat, ladies and gentlemen. Let us not delay. Here's a mass gravesite busted, ladies and gentlemen. Busted mass gravesite. Check that out. We're going to translate what they're saying here. French press reports 38 cases now overnight, basically. It went from 18 to 38, if you can believe that. California governor is currently monitoring 8,400 people with suspected cases. Of course, the big news that rocked the nation just a few hours ago was confirmed community transmission in California and San Francisco. And so that's really got to bother the Sodom and Gomorrah out there. Check out these videos of the mass roundup. These goon squads will be coming to you. Prepare for the last stand. Don't go out silently into the night, ladies and gentlemen. CDC warns of coronavirus spread in USA. Disruption to everyday life might be severe. I'm not sure how many people saw the president's press conference yesterday, but in one of the questions, they asked him, how bad is it going to get? And they were like, well, we've got the most severe plans. He kind of let it slip on the table. So expect the worst out there. Pull your kids out of school right now if you haven't done so already. Stock up. Time is running out. We're just days away from the China syndrome hitting America. Pence picks top U.S. AIDS official for corona response. Write that down. It'll be handy for later. Why an AIDS official? Why the HIV drugs? Chinese scientists desperately researching coronavirus discover that it shares human cell binding sites with HIV and Ebola. This is basically what we said on day one, ladies and gentlemen, that this is like HIV and Ebola. And it's internal Ebola. You don't see the hemorrhaging, but it basically eats away at people like that. And it infects the immune system like AIDS. It's like airborne AIDS, 1,000 times more contagious than SARS. And we'll be getting into the research. You can check out all of these links for yourself. We've posted them on the Twitter. Not because we want to, but because it's a convenient place for people to be able to check out these articles. You can also view these on our website, stfnreport.com, if you don't want to go on twitter.com. But it's more or less the same thing. Empty shelves in Milan supermarket as coronavirus, basically shuts everything down. This is usually where the water is in the supermarkets in Europe, on these pallets, and they're gone. And it won't be long before everything's pretty much done. You've had a month to prepare. Latest situation in Italy right now. We've got 650 confirmed cases. 17 have died. They say 40 have recovered, but we'll get into that, ladies and gentlemen. What do they really mean by recovered? And but in the numbers in Italy, we just want to kind of break this down. On February 20th, there were 3 people. 22nd, there were 79. The 23rd, 157. The 25th, 322 people. And now we're at 650. So it just keeps doubling and doubling exponentially. Once you have the infection, it could remain dormant and with minimal symptoms. And then you can get an exacerbation if it finds its way into the lungs. This thing keeps coming back like herpes. It's going to be a chronic condition, ladies and gentlemen, with flare-ups shredding your lungs into oblivion, and you're going to want to do everything you can to bring down irritation of the lungs. And we strongly recommend hydrogen peroxide to avoid nesting. We're also recommending getting the 10%, and if you feel like you're getting a flare-up, to lightly huff it. But this is only, kind of like as a last recourse. Huffing it a couple times to disinfect the lungs. If you can get oxygen, that will disinfect the lungs as well. Very difficult to get oxygen. We also recommend trying to get chloroquine if you can, CHLOROQUINE, chloroquine. It's an old malaria medication, but it's, it might be possible to get some. They're probably hoarding it right now. This virus is more like HIV in a sense, and we'll get into that. But let's continue on with the reports, and perhaps we can contact the video guy. I'm sure the idea of goon squads coming to your door or them burying you alive in your building isn't anything you want to think about right now. Get guns and ammo, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to need it. The Center of Disease Control and Prevention took 4 days to test a person with the first confirmed case. This is California, where the origin of the disease is unknown, and they hadn't traveled abroad or been exposed to an infected patient. They're doing it on purpose, and they're making it so, impossible to get a test before it's way too late, before it's totally taken down a hospital, all the staff and all the patients in that hospital. And, it's criminal. All these people, in federal government at the top levels are traitors, and they're in it together like a bunch of Charlie Manson groupies. They're just laughing at you as they prepare to go to their deep underground military base with the vaccine. The number of confirmed coronaviruses in Spain has risen to 17. And, we're learning a lot about the super spreader cases. And more often than not, they show up to the hospital the first time with symptoms. They don't have a test. And that reminds us, we've got the most bombshell video. We should have started with this. How's everybody doing out there? Let's see if we can play this, ladies and gentlemen, and kind of narrate for you. This guy basically gives a press conference upon leaving the hospital saying he thought he had coronavirus. But he tested negative. He's free to go. He's given the press conference. And all of a sudden they come out in a hazmat suit and snatch him. And the lady's like, no, he's not okay. He's not okay. You've all been contaminated. And what do you say to that? And, we could play the translation. We've got the translation here. We could actually play the original. He says he's healthy. He can leave the hospital. They come and snatch him. The hazmat people snatch him, bring him back. Let's go. They ask him. He's been discharged. You discharged him, right? Yes, he's not okay. Imagine being like, look at all these reporters there. And you just have to wonder if he didn't do it on purpose. We've seen numerous examples where the infected are trying to infect other people. It's like rabies. As soon as they get it, they're like forced to infect other people, go up and talk to them in their face. And, it's like the zombie apocalypse in a way, ladies and gentlemen. This footage speaks for itself, doesn't it? This thing is so out of control, and it's because of the tests. They're not working. We're going to be getting into that. We've got reports of, they can't even figure out why the tests aren't working. That's how far behind they are. That's why they're not testing anybody right now. Their tests just don't work. Yet in other countries, they seem to be able to test people positively with a quick test, like in Japan and South Korea. So what is the problem with the CDC? In fact, we've got some real disturbing reports from a senator who was like, if the public could have heard what the confidential report was just now, they would be, we're going to get into that. San Francisco just confirmed the first case from unknown origin yesterday, meaning the person didn't participate in air travel or any big events, so they have no idea how they became infected. This is like the worst case scenario. When you start seeing stuff like this, the end is near. in terms of a pandemic. And this isn't just any type of pandemic. You know, the last time there was a pandemic was the swine flu H1N1, which somehow became like the normal cold flu that we see every year. But in any case, this, you know, that pandemic was nothing compared to this. Nothing. And when it gets to this stage, I mean, it's out there like the flu. And you really have to be more than a germaphobe, because this thing is made to infect. And, you know, they're just starting to learn what this virus is. And we're going to be getting into that, ladies and gentlemen. But this is a bioweapon. It's meant to attack like a stealth bomber. It's meant to take out infrastructure in cities. It's meant to, you know, work around all sorts of containment, you know, protocols, from tests, you know, like at the lab, or temperature tests, or even masks and the like. The virus particles are much smaller than the mask, so a mask isn't enough. And, you know, it might help a little bit, but chances are everybody's been infected already. And we're going to be getting into disease management best practices. You're going to want to take notes, ladies and gentlemen. It'll be handy for either yourselves or people you know. Iranian vice president tests positive for coronavirus. England reports 2 new cases. They're shutting down schools. It's a catastrophe in the UK. We said yesterday, expect, like, you know, them to get pretty much wiped out. Their NHS system is already on the brink. And, you know, you got horror stories of people waiting hours for an ambulance and just basically being left to die on the in the hallways. And now with this thing, I mean, you just can't imagine. They're going to tell everybody to self-quarantine at home, and then we'll see what happens. But chances are the goon squads will be coming. Let's see. They're reporting here that the NHS is now reporting that the elderly will be sacrificed if you know, this virus overwhelms the UK. NHS to prioritize young people. That's being reported by the British press, so you can already start getting the picture. Buxton goes on lockdown after holidaymaker brings coronavirus home. GP surgery shut. School shut. Residents too scared to go to the store. They got no supplies. They don't want to go out. And basically, we're not far behind from that. Days. Maybe a week, but probably days. Probably in 3 or 4 days, it's going to be, everything's going to start looking like the China syndrome. So we're here, ladies and gentlemen. Bombshell, 14% of patients recovered test positive again, and this is probably an underestimate, but what they're picking up here is that you don't recover, you don't get cured, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And, you know, you'll get the first infection, and then you'll think it'll go away, but then it comes back. And they're trying to figure out how it comes back, and we're thinking that it harbors in the spleen. And basically there's, you know, massive bursts, you know, every 24 hours or so. Kind of like mono in a way. So we'll have to see how all of that turns out. They usually say the second time around is when people start dropping dead. So, you know what I mean? Let's see. COVID-19 becomes a chronic condition per some virologists, with flare-ups while shredding your lungs into oblivion. This is going to be a much bigger problem than we think. Coronavirus far more likely than SARS to bond to human cells due to HIV-like mutation. What they really mean is an insertion. But now even the mainstream press is reporting the HIV quote-unquote mutations that were inserted into this virus. Why? Because this is a pseudovirus. And in the video description, you'll find the smoking gun link to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, where they're working with this exact virus and combining it with HIV. There's a reason why it happened in Wuhan. And this is a bioweapon, ladies and gentlemen. You need to remember that. This isn't the regular flu. And things are starting to degenerate out there. They don't have guns, but they pulled out the swords, and it looks like a massive sword fight. This is the aftermath. You can check out that video on our website or on our Twitter, if you will. Let's play these videos again of the goon squads. I want everybody to get ready for the goon squads, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to be our last line of defense. If we can repel the goon squads going door to door, we can take this country back. But if they just take us out silently, then, you know, that'll be it. One by one, building by building, city by city. And they'll say everybody's infected. Mass graves being reported. You know, here's video. The numbers are much worse, and every country is going to be hiding it. But now we're starting to get a little more accurate picture of the kill rate. And look, at the end of the day, we wouldn't be surprised if the kill rate is closer to 40-50% than, you know, 2, 3, 5, 15, 20%. And you know, we're just gonna have to see. But this might be much worse. And again, when, you know, everybody figures out that they've been infected with this doomsday virus, that it came from the Chinese, and the Chinese are sitting, you know, nice and pretty after doing a massive kamikaze attack on the world, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if this escalates into World War III. And, you know, the problem is that undoubtedly even the people on the subs have been infected by this virus. Command and control has been infected by this virus. And, you know, this could be a massive preemptive attack followed up by all sorts of other attacks, EMP, nuclear strikes, full-blown invasion, and the like, payback for the tariffs and this new Cold War that we've been waging. How many people saw the Tianjin explosion many years ago? Here's more examples of the roundup. They're finding excuses to round people up for any little thing. Oh, you're out here messing with the ATM, are you? Trying to get money. And it always starts the same. It's like, you know, they show up, 3, 4 of them are like, hey, you having a nice day? And then comes the extraction. We're seeing video after video of this, ladies and gentlemen. We're also seeing them basically sucker all the migrants back into the cities, into the concentration camps. And these major cities will become, you know, a death factory. Get out of the big cities right now. And you can see, I mean, it's starting to look like World War II, Hitler, and, you know, you got it's like the Jews showing up at the train station with all their luggage. They're being rounded up and all of their goods are going to be hoarded. And that's what we're hearing, is that their government right now is basically taking, you know, food and property from citizens like the Stalin regime. They've gone full communist over there. We're seeing, you know, more videos of extractions by goon squads, liquidation, mass graves, crematoriums, and the like. You know, it is what it is, and it's to be expected here. Again, you know, other news channels are reporting that this virus came from a lab. This is not a normal virus. The way it's infecting the world, this is not a normal virus. This is a doomsday virus. Act accordingly. Get everything you can. Pull the kids out of school, quit your job, it's over. The old world, it's over, it's dead. And either you're gonna survive like Mad Max, or, you know, escape from New York, or you're not gonna survive. Get ready, group up with somebody. It's gonna be like Survivor out there. People are breaking down everywhere for all sorts of things. Hear more people lining up for the executions. You know, and they make you think, oh, you're going to work, then you get infected, then you go to, you know, the hospital, which is 2 blocks away from the crematorium. And we're learning that people are being burned alive in body bags. You know, once they've been diagnosed as critical in the hospital, to make room for new people, they tie them up, they put them in the body bag, and they send them to the crematorium. Imagine that being your last minutes. You know, they've zip tied your hands, they've closed the body bag, and they throw you into the van like a sack of potatoes, bringing you to the crematorium. Do you want to talk about, you know, pure evil? That's what this regime has become out there. So everybody's got to, you know, cut ties with this regime, and you know, we're gonna have to see. This is an interesting video, but we're not going to get into it. Although you might think they're American, but in fact, they speak Chinese. So undoubtedly, we've got all sorts of operatives like this running around infecting people. So what else we got out here? Oh yeah, it's, you know, now there's like armed gangs going around robbing stores, liquidating them. I mean, people are starving, and eventually it's going to degenerate into this, little tribes going, you know, door to door. So you'll have the goon squads trying to take you to the camps, and then you'll have these squads coming in trying to liquidate, or steal your stuff, rape and pillage. Arm up out there. Get ready for this kind of thing. Set up choke points, ambushes, set up, honey trap. You know what I mean? And you can be creative. Think of things that'll kind of, make them sit there and look through it or something, and then you can open fire. This was an interesting one. It looks like in the Hong Kong, like the police officers beat up their commander. They must have been getting orders to do stuff they didn't want. Hope you got a mask like this out there, but perhaps this won't even be effective. We talked about this guy. That was really crazy. This is a very interesting map of one super spreader case. And, one person can do a lot of damage. One person can infect 400 people. One person can infect 1,000 people, depending on, where they work, what they do. Here's a graph of the daily new cases inside and outside of China. They're basically meeting up now. You can see, this is now picked up logarithmically. We've got, this line is 100, this line is 1,000, this line is 10,000. And as you can see, we're crossing lines here of logarithmic scale. So it's taking off. Expansion of the virus over the past month or so. Japan closes all schools. The U.S. should close all schools, cancel all sporting events, and stop interstate travel, stop all flights. This is going that way anyways. And not doing it now is suicide. And they need to find real tests. They need to slow everything down and start thinking about supply lines. And they should compartmentalize every division, every battalion of every unit, down to the company level, down to the squad level. Some will be infected, some won't. But we need to figure out, what is going to survive. Right now, the troops are in danger, being in these barracks and, basically canned in like sardines. We're going to lose all our troops if they don't do something. So they better start acting accordingly. And we're going to get into this tweet from a senator that just went through a confidential briefing, and what he said just speaks volumes. What's this one? I would like to see plans to identify sick people and isolate them at home unless they require hospitalization. China syndrome. We need to support people with food, medicine, etc., so that they can remain isolated, which won't work. And they're not going to be Ubering you dinner, while you're in quarantine or while they lock down the city. If you don't have supplies, you're going to starve. And if you go out, they're going to arrest you. You don't have long. Get everything you can, especially hydrogen peroxide. 10% is recommended. Get oxygen if you can. Get chloroquine if you can. And replay on demand if you missed the spelling of chloroquine. Hawaii authorities are so alarmed about the lack of testing ability that they requested permission from the CDC to use tests from Japan. Hawaii needs to know they've got all sorts of super spreader cases. It's everywhere now. And so the question is going to be, managing the disease if you've been infected and not getting infected if you haven't been infected. And that's going to be impossible to do, just trying to get groceries. Don't wait to the last minute to pull out, but pull out of society, but chances are everybody's been infected, especially the big cities, and everything 100 miles within the big cities has been infected already. Totally dusted. Okay, so this is Blumenthal's tweet. We're not a supporter of Blumenthal, but it was interesting because of the insight that he would have and what he saw. This morning's classified coronavirus briefing should have been made fully open to the American people. They would be appalled and astonished by the inadequacy of preparedness and prevention. It's like 9/11 all over again. The planes are 20 miles out. The planes are 10 miles out. Do the orders still stand? Of course the orders still stand. The Georgia Guidestones, haven't you seen them? Ladies and gentlemen, the Deagle.com report, haven't you seen it? The GMOs, the vaccines, the fluoride, the death towers. And, turn off the EMF. Turn off your cell phones. Turn off the Wi-Fi. Go get an Ethernet cable. Forget, phones even exist for the time being. It's just going to weaken your immune system and make you expire faster, ladies and gentlemen. So do everything you can to bring down virus load. Here's, let's get into some tips on what to do to survive a little bit. This virus attacks pretty much every organ to a certain extent, but especially everything related to immunity. So the spleen, the liver, the kidneys, anything that might help you fight off an infection. You want to boost those with fruits and vegetables, apples. Go get tons of apples. That helps the spleen. Drink lots of water. You got to piss this thing out, and you got to manage the urine. You're probably gonna have to go through 2 or 3 pair of underwear a day. Not kidding. Even the slightest drop will become like a huge source of coronavirus that'll go up your nose as you're sitting at the keyboard or whatever. And it'll travel from, quite literally, fecal clouds and urine into your nose and respiratory tract. Urine management, waste management is going to be a huge thing trying to fight this virus. You're going to want to drink lots of water, lots of coffee, in order to, induce, let's just say, a flow of virus outside of your body. The idea is to limit the amount of virus that's inside of your body, or to reduce the numbers. And you can do that by pissing it out. Piss out this virus, ladies and gentlemen. Here's another video of the goon squads coming for you. So you're going to want to avoid the junk food as much as possible. Avoid soda, anything that might bring down your pH. And you're going to probably want to think about baking soda. Now, we've read quite a few white papers, quite a few reports, and we saw something really interesting about baking soda reducing inflammation, but also kind of depressing the immune system. So baking soda is not a cure-all for everything here. It may help, but it's to be used in a limited way, ladies and gentlemen. We can't stress enough hydrogen peroxide. We've covered the white papers that says hydrogen peroxide deactivates coronavirus. All coronavirus is highly susceptible to oxygen, whether it be gaseous form or H2O2, which is known as oxygenated water. So we recommend if you go out, to gargle with it 10%, not more. 3% minimum, but you probably want to get into the 10% range. Gargle with it, rinse afterwards. A lot. Don't swallow it. It's a topical anesthetic, and it can be used as a mouthwash, but it is not to be. You don't drink it. It's very important, and you don't probably give it to kids either, because they'll probably drink it. But you'll want to gargle with it and swab your nose out with it, and you don't want to do that too many times a day, because it is an irritant, and inflammation will make every disease worse. So you want to reduce inflammation, but you also want to prevent nesting of this virus or reduce virus load. Now, you can also, in emergency situations or quasi-emergency situations, you can huff a little bit of it in the bottle, kind of shake up a small bottle with it, and huff it a little bit. Hydrogen peroxide at 10% is, it's okay to huff it, but you're not like huffing it like glue, like in a bag, and like over and over again. We're talking like, one deep breath of it, maybe 2, and that'll clean up like the epithelial tissue, all the way down in the lungs, and if it'll reduce viral load a little bit, and contain the spreading. So hydrogen peroxide is going to be your best friend. Avoid bleach and chlorine and stuff like that as much as you can, because that will irritate your lungs. Bleach turns into chlorine, which is a toxic gas, and you want fresh air. If you can't get oxygen, get fresh air. If you live in the city, you're doomed, because you're not going to get fresh air, you're going to get urban air, and that's why it's going to be so much worse in the cities. And the places that have sprung up so far are highly polluted areas, like the north of Italy, highly polluted, and what we're seeing in the north of France, it's highly polluted in terms of air quality. And air quality makes a big difference in terms of this virus. It loves this virus hates oxygen. It hates life, right? And it loves carbon-rich environments like carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide. So this virus, is a death virus, ladies and gentlemen. But this Blumenthal tweet truly says it all, and we deserve to know the real situation. But he's basically letting us know, like, if you knew the real numbers and how screwed we are, you'd freak out. So, this is the tweet again. This morning's classified coronavirus briefing should have been made fully open to the public. They would be appalled and astonished of the inadequacy of preparedness and prevention. And they've had years to prepare. There's no excuse for this. What they're doing right now, there's no excuse. They're part of the Agenda 21 program. Can be confirmed that multiple labs still do not have an understanding of exactly what went wrong with the third reagent of the CDC's diagnostic test. They can't figure out why the test doesn't work. That's how far behind they are. This is a real interesting story of what's going on out there in China. You should read that. We're not going to read that right now. 23-year-old, no prior illness. 29, 30-year-old, 8 dead. In Iran, coronavirus is wreaking havoc. Nurse from a hospital in the epicenter says that during the night shift alone, he witnessed 8 people die, young people. It's not just the old that are going to get killed by this. And, we don't know how bad it is. It could be 100% death rate, ladies and gentlemen, and they've been hiding it. And, the cases that they release are just, at the first stage of this disease. And by the time they get to stage 4, then, they're done. So, look, we're going to have to see. But, them trying to say, like, oh, it's just like the cold and hardly anybody will feel it, that's BS. Everybody's going to feel it. And this is another real interesting article talking about how the Chinese hide and lie to us over and over when it comes to these kind of things. Bloomberg radio guests say 20 times more deadly than the common flu. And it's, if the flu kills at 2% or probably not 2%, probably like 1%, if even, we're still talking about numbers that are much higher than, what they're saying right now in the mainstream news. This thing is much, much worse than anybody can appreciate. How do you, this is the video that's talking about what's happening right now. They're burning people alive in the incinerators to make room for those that perhaps they can save. Tweet from behind the quarantine lines here. Out of food and water. It's been a month since they've reported being out of food and water. They keep telling them to just wait. And we've got videos, tons of videos of where they're just, stealing food from the farmers. They're dumping them. They're not letting the food get to the cities. And then they're telling everybody there's no food. Problem, reaction, solution. How many dying every day in Wuhan? 40 portable incinerators times 3 corpses per incinerator per day equals 1,200 corpses per day. In addition to the 47 crematoriums running at full capacity, another 1 million incinerators are on the way. It looks like, total devastation. And they wouldn't be going to this extent if this was, like a 2% kill rate. This must kill much, much higher. And the fact that they've hidden that, all of that, everything about this virus tells you that they want everybody to die because of it. They're going to try and contain it the best they can. But they know that the rest of the world won't even come close in terms of, liquidation, containment, lockdown, incineration, and the like. And, if they're doing all that just to stay afloat, and we're not even close to that, nobody's got a mask, nobody's got anything really. I mean, everybody's going to get nuked, pretty much. Let's see. CDC's webpage says that shows only 14 confirmed cases. This was, probably a couple hours ago. Maybe it's changed, maybe not. But it doesn't even include the 42 cases which were diagnosed. And, you've been hearing about 53 or 55 cases or so on and so forth. Yeah, they don't even update their website anymore. Let's see. Coronavirus infects woman in Japan for the second time. A first in the country. This made the news. I mean, this is even on Fox now. And so, they're going to call it reinfection, but it's a relapse. They're relapsing like herpes or like, if you get chicken pox for the second time. Something like that. but they're relapsing. And the second time and the third time, it gets worse. Denmark, Estonia confirmed first cases, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, everybody, it's blowing up everywhere. And now it's going exponential everywhere. CDC should just ask South Korea for some test kits. They should have done that 2 months ago. But, they made it like super difficult to get testing done. 4 or 5 day turnaround times, had to be done at the CDC. Nobody else could do it but them. And, while other countries have distributed tests to all their hospitals for the most part, at least like the countries near China, because they dealt with the SARS epidemic. Cabinet office has been in communication with local authorities about excess death contingency planning, effectively their mass death preparedness plans in the event the coronavirus ends up being a worst case scenario, which it will be. So they're already planning the death camps, the incinerators, etc. HIV mutation makes this 1,000 times stronger than the SARS virus, ladies and gentlemen. And here's a quote. We've been talking about this. And, when the first reports came out from an Indian lab, the scientific community, the quote-unquote scientific community, basically, shit themselves and had a fit and forced that team to retract their paper, even though it was, bona fide. And, look at them now, right? Now, a month later, they're all saying it. And this is why, free speech needs to be preserved. And all these libtards, that always kind of bully you because you're saying what they don't want to hear, that obviously has to stop. And look, once they get, exterminated from the big cities, I mean, obviously it will stop. There'll be pretty much nothing left of San Francisco, of, California. This problem is going to be taking care of itself here, ladies and gentlemen. The question is, will you survive the goon squads? Will you survive the tribes that come door to door? Let's see. Case of coronavirus being investigated in Southwest Virginia. We're also hearing of a school in New York being shut down. Tons of kids, supposedly sick all at the same time. And we've been hearing a lot of school closures this year, exceptionally. And we think that this virus really started circulating, around the country sometime in mid-January, soon after, the outbreak in China. And of course, it was only just a plane ride away from your neighborhood. So, but they're springing up everywhere. And look, it's a little ahead of schedule. We kind of figured, well, on an average kind of scale, 2 months from the lockdown would be when we would see, things really get bad everywhere else. But it's come sooner. It's come sooner than that, which means that this is worse than, any projections that are currently out there for the most part. This is a magnitude 4 outbreak, which means the numbers are going to be staggering. We're probably talking, conservatively speaking, hundreds of millions of people killed, but probably going to be more than that. Could be billions of people killed by the time this is all said and done with the war and famine. And I think we'll be lucky if anybody survives, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. Once you have the infection, it could remain dormant and with minimal symptoms, and then you can get an exacerbation, a flare-up, a relapse, if it finds its way into the lungs. But it doesn't just go into the lungs. It goes into the kidney, the spleen, the liver, the digestive tract. And so, it's coming out every which way. When you breathe, when you pee, number 2, the gas clouds, everything. And so, you just really have to think about the worst case scenario here. CDC confirms first unknown coronavirus case in California, San Francisco, who hasn't recently traveled abroad. The community spreading has begun. And so don't wait for them to close down your school to pull your kids out. Pull them out now. Maybe you can still save them. And, pull yourself out of society now as much as you can. And again, to kind of go over the things that you want to get at the store right now on top of, toilet paper, food, water, beer, guns, ammo, all that. You want cranberry juice, pure kind, not the ocean spray. You're going to want to get hydrogen peroxide, baking soda, microdose the baking soda, gargle with hydrogen peroxide. Get coffee, lots and lots of coffee, lots and lots of bottled water, ways to filter out water. This will probably start coming back into the municipal water supply in the big cities. And so, you know, the big cities are doomed in so many ways. It's going to be traveling through the sewers, up the pipes. It's going to be everywhere they go. And it's going to, you know, sugarcoat everything like red rain for up to 28 days. And if the virus doesn't get you, then, you know, the mass, you know, spraying of disinfectant will. So if you're in a big city, you're pretty much done. Get out now while you can. Just don't infect anybody. Let's see. Good luck with that one. Let's see. This California case is utterly infuriating, according to our Harvard Johns Hopkins doctor here. Since patient did not fit the existing CDC criteria for COVID-19, a test was not immediately administered. The utter lack of immediate testing has caused a cascade of exposures, which all by itself could trigger an epidemic. And it just takes one case like that, and they'll all be like that for the most part, or they've all been like that up to now. So there's no telling how many hospitals and the like have been infected. And you're better off kind of writing this out at home if you can. And that's why we recommend, if you can get oxygen, you know, go on oxygen right away. If you're forced to go to the hospital, you know, demand you're on oxygen right away. Don't wait for the 3 or 4 days for them to give you a test. Oxygen right away. And that's your, you know, the sooner the better. That's why we recommend, you know, getting it any which way you can right now. Oxygen, hydrogen peroxide, you know, and you might be able to get little canisters. Not sure what you'll get if you order it from Amazon. It'll probably just be like, you know, air. You want the medical kind, certified, you know, and the like. But, you know, they'll probably want you to have a prescription, and nobody wants to go to the doctor's office right now. So they're basically making it impossible to get anything to survive. The only thing you might be able to get that'll help perhaps a little bit is, you know, hydrogen peroxide, lots of, you know, vitamin C and baking soda. What else you should get? Coffee, lots of water. You're going to need to pee this virus out as much as you can. Overhydrate and pee, ladies and gentlemen. And, you know, for the guys out there, you're really going to have to, you know, contain the little drips, because it'll come back to gas you. So you're probably going to have to change a couple times a day. Let's see. This thing is so bad you can't even imagine. It's worse than bad perfume. Let's see. What else can we talk about? ER doctors infuriated by the lack of tests for COVID. They are basically forced to keep patients in the dark. America is driving a car in the dark without any tests available from the CDC. Let's test virus now. Get that hashtag trending. Let's see, another new case in Toronto, unclear where she got infected from it. It's community spreading everywhere. You're getting it everywhere now. You know, quit your job, pull your kids out of school, or go on vacation, you know, if you don't want to quit, but it's over. Let's see, buckle up, folks. Scientists have found why new coronavirus is so much more infectious compared to old SARS, the way of entry. This new HIV is 1,000 times more efficient. And so, look, I mean, this is going to infect in ways you can't even imagine. Drugs targeting the furin enzyme could have potential to hinder the virus replication. Of course, these are things you'll never get, but here's some a series of names that you can find from the doctor from Harvard, Johns Hopkins. So, pretty credible source, we'd say. And of course, you know, the cover-up all the way up to this. Remember the last 30 days or so that we've been covering this story. You know, for the most part, the television has been pretending like, you know, there is no virus, right? Anything is a better story than the virus up until now that everything's crashing down. And they should have done more to prepare instead of pretending. And, you know, whose fault is it? It's this administration's fault. The buck has to stop with them. And we feel that they've been, you know, complicit with the Chinese on this one, just like another 9/11, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get into that in another case. In California, Solano County, Might be links to the base out there. Again, a lot of these bases are probably infected, unfortunately, and all of command and control has been infected. It's and if they've been infected with a lethal virus, that means the whole thing is a ticking time bomb. The subs won't matter, the drones won't matter, nothing will matter. And what are they going to do? Nuke China or don't nuke China? So it's going to be real bad, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. U.S. has confirmed its first case of coronavirus with no known ties to other cases. A very worrying sign. Japanese woman confirmed as coronavirus case for a second time. She got quote-unquote reinfected, but she relapsed. So it goes dormant, then it comes back. It goes dormant most likely in the spleen, and then kind of like reinfects little by little, tries to ramp up, and we'll have to see if people survive the second wave. And if they do, is there a third wave? And does it just keep like whittling away at the body until it finally gets you? And again, this has taken out children, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds across the board. And the cases are probably, or the death rate, we should say, is probably much, much worse than what they're saying. And that would explain why, the Chinese have basically shut everything down, rounded people up. Anybody even suspected of having this virus is basically slated for extermination. So, as suspected, a lot of what we're seeing now is pretty much what we've been talking about for the last 30 days. We hope that everybody's been able to prepare to a certain extent. You'll never be able to prepare enough. Managing the disease, having a stockpile, avoiding getting reinfected, reducing your viral load is only part of the challenge that's coming up. Everything is going to be super challenging. Getting resupplies, surviving, and the like is just going to become super, super challenging. Can't imagine the horror that's coming, but prepare. And it's better to when it comes to these goon squads, shoot first, ask questions later. Because we've seen, their plans here. It's full liquidation, and hardly anybody's going to survive. So do what you can to survive. Take out as many New World Order goons as you can while you can. We must bring so much manufacturing back to the U.S., especially since most of the drugs and the like are made in China. And, we've been finding that a lot of the drugs they've been sending are tainted. We've been detecting like a lot of the gadgets that you find in the stores made in China, put out a huge amount of EMF and static electric fields that weaken your immune system. We'd say this has been planned for years, ladies and gentlemen. And, they've been upping the dose of radiation, EMF, to weaken everybody's immune system for this virus. And they don't want anybody to survive. So, they're making everything very difficult, stopping it, getting the medications that might help with it. Everything is becoming really difficult. And, people should be, basically storming DC right now, 1776 2.0 right now, knowing what we know. And, what good will that do, really, since everybody's pretty much condemned now? What do we do? Nuke the Chinese? It's just like, what do you do now? It's like a stalemate, checkmate, all at the same time. Anyways, moving on. Let's see. Cases outside of China. Basically, I thought we had a better graphic than this, but now it's much, much worse. We'll get back into that maybe. Let's see. What is this one? How are the only people that currently qualify to be tested not being tested? So you've met with the CDC's strict criteria for travel or contact with a confirmed case. Cool. Still not testing you. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of people that have been under supervision, quote unquote. And the reason that they're not being tested is that if they're not tested, then there can't be, a confirmed case. There can't be an outbreak if they don't test, right? It's like a catch-22, ladies and gentlemen. Here's an idea. Shut down all international flights. Shut down all flights, period. Shut down all schools, period. Right now. It's going to have to be done anyways. They might as well start right now. But see, every day that they let just kind of go by like nothing is happening is another, stab in the back, basically, ladies and gentlemen. What else we got? Again, these are just kind of like the latest updates that we're picking up through the wires. Let's see. Here we go. 2 men hospitalized at least part of the time in the same place. Okay, this is in France. They're talking about a super spreader case in France. The Italian media are saying now they're the Chinese, the China syndrome, right? We've been talking about this. It's happening. And if you remember the earlier broadcasts, it was body bags everywhere, full lockdown, drop dead virus, liquidation, people being buried alive, right? We're like, this is coming. And there's only weeks to prepare. And now it's here. So now we're definitely into a new phase. A couple days ago, we're like, everything's gone radio silent. Everything's changed. The matrix is glitched. We're entering a new phase. And then now we're starting to see, the exponential rise in numbers everywhere. And it's like, they're reporting in synchronous, like according to a plan. It's like the movie 2012 or Contagion or something. The people don't deserve to know except what we tell them. And the excuse is, to maintain public order. And, all the way up until the end when they're liquidating people, they'll just say, oh, everything's under control. Don't worry. Stay at home. And, you won't be able to leave. You won't be able to go out. If you say anything, they'll come and, extract you. And you're basically condemned to die in your home. That's the Agenda 21 plan. And so that was, the whole idea with these stack and pack, socialist housing projects. I mean, the big cities are so going to get wiped out. It's not even funny. And look, to a certain extent, obviously, I think that's, it's kind of overdue. When you look at how evil these people have been, these democrats, the Sodom and Gomorrah, how perverted it's been, with the kids and stuff. I mean, you've seen, all the reports, right? Like, oh, the video guy is at it again. But, from the, the Boy Scouts to, the teachers and the after school programs, the Luciferian after school programs and like, I mean, it's just like way, it's just off the hook, right? And so, if anybody was going to get blighted, it was definitely these people. And now, their day has come. The question is, will you survive? Yeah, your best chances of survival are out in the country, small town, and if you can start working together with your neighbors to secure your town, so be it. If you can't find anything but sheeple around you, ride them out. More than likely, they're not going to survive very long, without food and the like. And then you can just be the mayor of your town, So prepare for that. Again, check out our video archives. We've been covering this for quite some time. And so far, I mean, it's, as projected. Worst case scenario, it's this virus is a chimera of all of the nasty viruses they could think of. AIDS, Ebola, mono, avian flu, and the like. It's like a Frankenstein super virus that they've unleashed into the world, and it keeps coming back like herpes, and it just gets worse and worse, and there's pretty much no escaping it. And it turns like the people that are infected into like into like little demons, and they want to run around and infect other people, and you'll be seeing that for yourself. Somebody infected will come out of, try and get out of isolation and try and talk to you. Just like, this video. Let's see if we can play that again. It was pretty disturbing. Just thinking about this video right here. This is going to be a classic. But this guy just kind of like walks out of the hospital. And he's like, oh yeah, they've let me go. I'm all free to go. Yeah. See, the press is just kind of like sitting there, like, waiting to see what happens. And this guy just walks out thinking he's going to escape, and then he sees all the cameras, and they're like, what are you doing? This is intensive care. This is the quarantine zone. And he's like, oh, yeah, I was real worried, and I was going to, I thought, I had it, but I guess I don't have it. They said I don't have it, so I'm free to go, guys. And, and he's just talking, and they come in like, oh, no, you got to come with us. Come. And, the reporters are like, I thought you guys discharged him. Like, oh no, he's contaminated. You're all contaminated now. So, I mean, you're going to see tons and tons of these super spreaders. And the worst thing is that you can't tell just by looking at them if they're infected or not. for the most part, until until it's way, way too late. If they're showing like symptoms, I mean, they're almost critical. And, but they're infectious, like, just a few days after contamination. And this kicked off like well over a month ago. And if you remember what we were saying, day one, we found out that for, weeks at the height of the epidemic, they were sending planes everywhere around the world, full of infected people with this virus. And so the whole world was contaminated before they even knew what happened. And the Chinese, hid it from us as much as they could. And they're still hiding a lot. And but what we've been able to see in the videos that have been smuggled out is that, everybody's getting wiped out. It's a full genocide over there. And, even children, we saw the body bags of little kids being killed and the like, and the droplet virus. And of course, they arrested everyone that basically posted videos. 15 years in prison for spreading rumors, they say. You know how they like to spin and twist things. All of the patriots in our country have now become Nazis, thanks to Nazi Pelosi and the commies in Sodom and Gomorrah. And they're going to get, totally wiped out. And, there's nothing that anybody could have done. It was over before anybody really realized what happened. But I think this should be a lesson for everybody. We don't want this to happen again. We don't need communists and, dumb shits, pardon the language, in charge of anything. We say, vote Ron Johnson 2020. That's us. And otherwise, you're totally screwed. And, chances are the candidates that are running right now aren't going to be around for November. So there's going to be, quite a bit of chaos come this election season, to say the least. But let's see them tout, their big numbers, at the stock market now. They must be spending trillions of dollars just to float that thing, for a couple extra days. And, what a sham. What a bunch of phonies out there in Washington, D.C. It's just, it's ridiculous. Day one, I mean, this should have been on everybody's radar. But instead, they're like, oh, go back to shopping. Low risk. Does this look like low risk to you? Ladies and gentlemen. Let's get back to the news, if we can. How's everybody doing out there? We're broadcasting live on the ScrewTube. And if you're watching us on Facebook, be sure to find our ScrewTube channel, Stranger Than Fiction News. You can find the coordinates on our website, stfnreport.com. Well, I think that's pretty much it. We kind of covered it all for the most part. We're not going to redo everything here. If you're joining us late, be sure to replay on demand so that you can kind of see where we're at here. But the cases are just blowing up exponentially everywhere in Europe, and now the dam is starting to burst in America. Community spreading has begun. The CDC is warning everybody that this is going to have severe disruptions to everyday life. Everything's going to get locked down, and it's going to be like the worst movies you've ever seen, like Contagion, medical martial law, quarantine camps, people being taken away, and the like. And who knows, they may nuke entire cities and towns. World War III might kick off because of this thing, because this was a preemptive attack from the Chinese. There's no other way to interpret this as it's unfolded at this stage. And, thanks to them, hundreds of millions, if not billions of people will die. And, that certainly can't, go unpunished. And you can bet that if we're going to go out, we're going to take those fuckers out with us. So expect the worst, ladies and gentlemen. Stock up and prepare for the last stand. You've been warned. You have no excuses. Of course, look, nobody's saying that you can't keep hope alive. Obviously, we should keep hope alive and anticipate that we will survive. But, you need to make that happen. It's kind of like going on a road trip. You got to, get your checklist. You got to get everything. And now, your days are numbered to get everything in order, to get your affairs in order. But look, Sodom and Gomorrah is going to get wiped out. So keep saying your prayers out there for sure. Hopefully, you know the 10 Commandments. You know that you've been following them to the letter, right? Every single one of them, right? You haven't been doing the OMGs. You haven't been looking at married people. You haven't been stealing or coveting, right? You're okay. Keep saying your prayers out there. Know your 10 Commandments. And remember what we're called to do in the Gospels. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons, and preach the gospels, ladies and gentlemen. Prepare the way, make the way straight. Till the next time, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, you are the resistance.